They call them shelves just because they stick out from the trunk. And it's a polypore, which means underneath side has little tiny little like holes instead of having gills, which are the when you pick up most mushrooms or um, look underneath them, you'll see that they have these things that are like it looks like a fan.
These are the gills that Cynthia is talking about. Between the gills lie millions of spores, and they are waiting to be released. They drift away on the wind.
Mushrooms have, but this is a polypore, which means it has pores instead of gills. Okay, so this one is particularly common around here, growing on pine trees. Do you happen to know if that was a pine tree that you found it on?
Egan says it was a pine tree.
Okay, good. And now they most commonly are growing on dead pine trees. Was it a dead pine tree?
He says it was a dead pine tree because it had no needles.
Oh, that's a good sign that it's a dead pine tree. So yeah. Um, now mushrooms fall into three general categories of how they live. Okay. Um, they all are um, the mushroom that you find that you see above ground or on a tree or coming out of a root of a tree. Those are just those are just one part of the mushroom. They're sort of like the fruit of the mushroom. The real mushroom itself, the real organism lives underneath or within the thing that you find it on. So um, this one lives, most of it is within inside the tree. It's a huge vast network of sort of a root like things, like little stringy things that live that have made their way all through the inside of the tree. And what they're doing is digesting. Their food is that tree. So they're digesting the dead tree and helping to break it down. And eventually the tree will become so weak from all of this eating of it from the inside out that it'll fall down and the rest of it will go into the forest and create new soil. So this particular kind of mushroom is called a saprophyte, and saprophyte is the ones that live on the dead trees. Um, there's also parasites, which are another kind of I mean, often the ones that grow on trees are parasites, and they're actually living on a dying tree because they're kind of killing it. And I have an example of one of those, which is a lovely edible mushroom called um, the maitake. It's a that's kind of a Japanese name for it. It's also called Grifola frondosa, and this is one that people find at the base of big old what turns out to be dying oak trees, and they're very valuable to Japanese people and to Americans, but traditionally they were really valued. And this is another one. Well, this is going back to the saprophytes. It's one that this is called chicken of the woods, and it lives on a tree by eating it the same way that the red-belted polypore. Now, the reason I think that your specimen is a red-belted polypore is because here's an official picture of a red-belted polypore. So, you think that's the same thing?
He says yes.
Yeah, definitely looks like it to me. And here's another one just for good measure. Whenever you are identifying a mushroom, it's really important to have some good books that help you with that identification, and that you use two or three anyway to help you confirm what it is you've found. So another thing that's and one of the reasons is because their mushrooms are, there's a lot of them that are very good to eat, and there are a lot that are not gonna agree with you, and then there are a few that will actually kill you if you eat them. So, but this kind of one that grows on a tree is not dangerous. Native American tribes from Eastern Canada used to use it to stop bleeding. So you take the mushroom and you cut it up and you dry it, and then you make it into a powder and apply it to a bleeding wound, and it'll stop the bleeding. They also used it for when you have when you tend to have a sensitive stomach, or you have repeated problems with your stomach. They used it as a tea for inflammation of your, to calm your stomach and to make it less irritated. And also they used it to generally make you more healthy and able to resist colds and things like that. And they're not the only ones that use it for that. It's used in Japan for that, and it used to be used in out west in the Western United States. They soak it in whiskey and take it 3 times a day to cure what ailed them. Um, and let's see. Oh, it's also been used in herbal medicine for fevers, nervous headaches, and diarrhea. And there's been experiments that have found that it has anti-cancer properties in, mice and guinea pigs. We don't know about the humans in terms of the experiments, because they can't really experiment on humans ethically. But so far, they've found that it helps to get rid of tumors, and or to prevent them, and to regulate blood sugar, like to prevent diabetes, um, and to help with your immunity. And it's also used in the cosmetic industry because it has some really nice moisturizing properties, and it can be used to get a red dye for textiles. So it's a very useful little thing that you've found there. I'd probably guess that it was as old as it would be if it after the year that that tree died. Okay, so the first time that it was a dead tree, it probably started forming. Oh, here's the one that I was thinking of. Okay, so this starts as a white mushroom, and then another mushroom invades it and turns it into an orange mushroom, and that turns into a different shape. So that's when there's two mushrooms living together. Now, when I started looking for mushrooms 32 years ago when I moved into my house, and I found out from my father-in-law that I had edible mushrooms living in my yard, and I got really interested in them just because of that. And from there, I just started learning them one by one, and learning how to be really careful about finding them and identifying them. And now I know a whole bunch of them. It's like 20, like 30 different ones that I could find around here to eat.